All right, so can you really make $4 in 30 minutes on a site called JumpTask? It's a pretty bold claim, right? Well, today we're going to dig into a real test somebody did. We'll break down exactly how it all went down, what actually worked, and, what totally didn't.
And this is really the big question, isn't it? The person who ran this test made almost $4. But, and this is a big but, did they really earn it just by doing tasks? Or is there some kind of catch? That's the mystery we're diving into.
Okay, so first things first, what even is JumpTask? Basically, it's one of those online platforms where you can get paid for doing little jobs, simple tasks, watching offers, that kind of thing. It's totally free to join, so you can see why a lot of people are curious about it as a way to make a little extra cash online. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. To figure out where this money came from, we got to follow the trail right from the very beginning. And that means looking at the setup, because that's where this whole story really kicks off. So the setup was actually pretty simple. Just 3 steps. Step 1, make a free account on JumpTask. Easy enough. Step 2, download a different app called Honeygain. And step 3, connect that Honeygain account to JumpTask. And let me tell you, that third step, that's the key to this whole thing. It's the most important piece of the entire puzzle.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The single biggest moneymaker in this whole 30-minute experiment, it wasn't actually doing any tasks on JumpTask. Nope. It had nothing to do with completing offers or any of that stuff. It was a bonus.
And how much was that bonus? Around $3. Seriously, the huge majority of the earnings came from a one-time sign-up bonus just for linking those 2 apps together. Think about that for a second. Before even one single task was clicked, most of the money was already there.
Okay, so we know where most of the cash came from, but that's not the whole story. Now let's really break down the entire payout and see what the rest of the earning experience was actually like. So let's ask that question again. Where did the money really come from? If it wasn't mostly from tasks, what's the actual breakdown of that $4 total? Let's take a look. And wow, this chart just says it all, doesn't it? A whopping 75% of the total earnings, that's from the sign-up bonus. Only about 22% came from actually grinding out tasks on JumpTask. And that little 3% sliver, that's just some passive sharing from Honeygain. I mean, you can't argue with these numbers. It's crystal clear. So yeah, the bonus was obviously the big win here, no question. But what about that other slice of the pie, that 22%? What was it actually like to try and earn money the old-fashioned way on the platform? Well, let's just say it wasn't exactly a walk in the park. The whole experience of doing the tasks was kind of frustrating. I mean, some of them were just plain confusing. Others would take way too much time for what they were paying. And then even when you finished something, sometimes the reward wouldn't even show up right away. It was just a bit of a grind, And that really explains why the money earned from actually doing tasks was so small. Okay, so let's put it all together now. We've seen the setup, we've seen the big bonus, and we've talked about the not-so-great task experience. It's time to look at the final tally. Let's see the proof. And there it is, the grand total after about half an hour of effort, almost exactly $4. So the money is definitely real, that's confirmed. But as we've been saying this whole time, the how, that's the really important part of the story.
Think of this table as the final receipt, just laying it all out. You've got about $3 from the Honeygain sign-up, around 90 cents from the JumpTask offers, and a measly 10 cents from passive sharing. When you see it like this, it's just so obvious. The actual work part, that brought in less than $1.
And this really brings us to the core of it all, expectation versus reality. The expectation is you go to a site like JumpTask and you earn money by doing simple tasks. But the reality? Well, at least for this first half hour, most of the earnings came from a one-time bonus for connecting a whole different app. It's a huge difference. So what's the final verdict here? Is it legit? Yeah, the money is real. The catch we were looking for isn't some kind of scam. It's all about understanding where the money actually comes from. The real key here wasn't grinding through a bunch of small tasks. It was taking advantage of that one-time sign-up offer. So it leaves you with a question, right? When you look at these kinds of online opportunities, are you just looking at the work, or are you looking at the system behind it? All right, let's talk about JumpTask. You've probably seen it buzzing around online, right? It's one of those platforms promising you can earn some extra cash from your computer. But the real question is it a legit opportunity, or is it just going to be a massive waste of your time? And look, let's just get right to it. This is what everyone wants to know when they see something like this pop up. Is this popular side hustle for real? Or is it just another one of those online scams? We're going to answer that for you, like right now. We're not going to make you wait until the very end of this explainer for the big reveal. No way. We're going to start with the bottom line, the core conclusion right up front. Now, what's really cool about the source material for this is the whole approach. It's not based on what someone thinks or some random hype. As it says right here, no fake promises, no hype, only real testing. That means we're getting a super straightforward, honest look at this thing. And here it is, the honest verdict from all that testing. Let's start with the good news, okay? JumpTask is absolutely not a scam. And yes, it actually does pay you. But, and you knew there was going to be a but, right? Here's the catch. This is not fast money at all. The earnings are, well, they're slow. So yeah, the money's real, but it is not going to come rolling in quickly. Okay, so we know it pays, but it's slow. What does slow actually mean, though, in the real world? Let's break down what it's really like trying to earn on JumpTask.
So these are the kind of challenges you can expect. First off, like we said, the earnings are slow to pile up. You're going to be at it for a while to see anything significant. On top of that, sometimes the tasks themselves can be kind of confusing to figure out. And even when you finish one, your reward might take a little while to show up. The best way to think about it? It's a starting point, for sure, but it is not going to be your primary source of income.
If you remember one thing from this section, let it be this. It's super simple. The earnings are small, but they are real. That little sentence right there just helps you set the right expectations if you're thinking about giving it a shot. And that brings us to the most important question, right? For you. Knowing the money's real but small, how do you decide if this is actually a good use of your time? Let's figure out who this is really for, and maybe more importantly, who should just skip it. This table just lays it out perfectly. So who is it for? Well, students, yeah, beginners, who are just kind of dipping their toes into side hustles, and anyone who's just testing the waters of side income. Now, who should avoid it? Pretty much anyone who needs big money and fast, or if you have, low patience. And definitely anyone looking for something to replace a full-time job. And this quote is basically the golden rule for JumpTask. Keep expectations realistic. I mean, if you go in knowing it's a slow grind for a small reward, you probably won't be disappointed. But if you're dreaming of a big payday, yeah, you're just going to get frustrated. So we've pretty much established that JumpTask is legit, but it's slow, and we have a good idea of who it's for. But that's actually not the whole story. This first look is really just building up to something bigger. That's right. The source analysis makes it super clear that this is just the beginning. This quote, "but this is only part one," is kind of like a cliffhanger, right? It tells you there's a deeper, maybe more interesting strategy to check out here. So what's in this part two? Well, the plan is to run a much more detailed test by combining JumpTask with another platform called Honeygain. This next phase is all about tracking the actual time it takes, looking at the real-world problems you run into, and then figuring out if stacking these two platforms together makes the whole thing truly worth the reward. And that brings us to the final and, honestly, the most important question. We've already moved past, is it a scam? We know it pays. The ultimate question, the one you really need to ask yourself, is this. Is that tiny reward really worth your time and your effort? That's the real test for any side hustle, isn't it?